When you started to introduce yourself, you mentioned the fact that there was very few people from a multicultural background in your class in Kerry, and um, you could have said like a multi-ethnic background, but you chose to use the word multicultural. Can you explain that to me? A lot of the issue that you have mentioned before in passing had to do with the color of your skin, which is different than the culture. So I'm intrigued by the fact that you use that terminology of multicultural. Can you explain that to me?
Yes. So when I was growing up in my classes, there was racial diversity. So let's say in terms of skin color, there was people from a range of different backgrounds. But for me, I'm a Black woman, but I'm Irish-Nigerian. So I have like a multicultural identity. So in terms of my Nigerianness, that comes a lot from my parents. I was never born in Nigeria, and to be honest, I mostly identified as Irish up until I actually visited Nigeria when I was like 16 years old. So I really grew up believing more so in my Irish identity, and growing up, with Irish culture, Irish music, having mostly Irish friends, spending time at their homes, and really just seeing.
Yeah, well, you say like you were born in Ireland, and you the first time you went to Nigeria was when you were 16.
Exactly.
So obviously, you're Irish. Yeah,
exactly.
But yeah, you're in that bus.
Exactly. But then I visited Nigeria, and really that struck a big kind of chord within me. Like I really realized like I am both Irish and Nigerian. Getting to visit all my family members back home, getting to eat foods that I don't have access to in Ireland, but obviously we have access to there, really just showed me that I do have this kind of dual identity, and I want to be able to leverage that in my academics. I want to be able to leverage it in my personal life. I want to be able to leverage that in my career because it is an asset. And I think this is the story for a lot of people now growing up in Ireland. Maybe they come from immigrant backgrounds, but they do have a dual identity if they're born in Ireland. And I think it is a strength. Whenever I travel to America or France and say I'm Nigerian Irish, they're like, oh, really, you're Irish? Like, what is that like? Like how, what is the culture there like, the food there like? Like they've a lot of times never met a Nigerian Irish person. And so or even like the way I speak, it's not with a Nigerian accent, for example. So when I go home to Nigeria, they're like, oh, you are so Irish, like you are such a Western girl. And so it's interesting, definitely, and I do love it. I've grown to love it.
Yeah. Just talking about diversity, equity and inclusion, one of the reasons I wanted to talk about this topic with you, and you have addressed like some of the challenge that the entrepreneur were facing in Ireland, but more generally, you're aware that like between the time you probably take on and did your dissertation and maybe what has been happening now, things have been evolving or are evolving literally as we speak. You look at the likes of Google, Meta, the extent to which they have progressed on that agenda, being the first to publish diversity report, having even diversity target, to being amongst the first to drop the acronym DEI from their annual report. So the atmosphere is changing quite dramatically in the US, and it's also affecting Ireland. Like, what is your view on DEI as a tool to facilitate integration in the context of Ireland in particular? Do you have any view on that topic? And I will actually jump on your answer and maybe make my own contribution to the topic.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And I do think that DEI plays a huge role in the kind of economic development of Ireland as a country. If we kind of take diversity specifically, we're specifically kind of talking about representation of different ethnicities, of different races, of different religions. And if we want Ireland to be a country that attracts more, let's say, business for people who are in business, attracts more investment, attracts more, a stronger workforce, we need a country that celebrates the different people that are living here. And what that is to me is social cohesion. So that's really including and having everybody represented. And so I think if we want to develop a future that kind of our economy is being built up, that diversity is very important. And then if we kind of take the equity stance, I do believe that it's very important to recognize that people come from different starting points in life. There is a very big debate about kind of equity and equality, which one is better, which one is correct. And to be honest, I think it's contextual, I think it's situational, which would be the most effective. But I do think equity is very important because the reality is we don't all come from the same walks of life. Some people need more support than others. And what I would really like to emphasize that a lot of people have a misunderstanding about equity is that it's not that you're giving some people an extra push, you're giving some people extra support than others. It is simply giving people support so that they get to the same level as somebody else who maybe has not received that support, but they are at this certain level. So if we're just taking it visually, somebody starts here, somebody starts here. Equity is simply ensuring that both people are starting right here. And I think that's something that people should really try to understand, because a lot of times they think it's actually pushing somebody else above another person. So it is still about merit. It is still about having an ability. For example, if you're taking 2 job candidates, it is still that both candidates are still qualified to do the job, but just ensuring that they have the adequate support. And if we take inclusion, I think it's really about belonging. So if we just take the like in corporations, for example, if you are having a lot of diversity focus groups or having a lot of research where you're directly asking people who are from ethnic minority groups, do you feel like your voice is heard in this organization? Do you feel like racial issues, maybe you faced microaggressions, do you feel like that has been solved, or do you feel like that has been overlooked? I think that that is really important in order for people to feel really included in the organization, because a lot of companies can just focus on quotas. Okay, let's just make sure we have 20% this, 20% this. But if you want to make real change and if you want to really make people feel like they belong in an organization, they need to have their voices heard. And not just at entry level. I believe that that should go to mid-level. I believe it should go to managers. And I do believe it should go to the C-suite as well. And this should, I do think that this would disperse out into kind of the overall Irish economy as well.
Yeah. No, I think you make a very valid point. Like you mentioned equity, and you're right. Like equity and equality are obviously completely different. But like there is a necessity to treat things different situation differently, and that relates to equity. But I think the big challenge, and I think it's an important point, because one of the reasons this DEI has been challenged in the US in particular was the around the quota and like the diversity target. So, and that's when it became like a more contentious issue, because I agree with you that like differences in starting point need to be addressed, and but the easy solution, if you want to address this, is like you define quota, and then, but that doesn't address actually the issue at the core. What it does is actually potentially create another type of inequality or injustice, which I think has been part of the underlying current as to why DEI policy in some company has been dropped so quickly. And I actually think, to build on that, the danger is now twofold. While those diversity and equity human resources are being dropped, it is important for the reason that I think I've allowed. Well, actually, let's face it, they are being dropped for political reason, but the political reason of the underlying, there's people who have voted for that particular candidate. But anyway, the point is, the danger would be that like the aim for social justice, or at least the aim for equity and for giving for giving equal opportunity. Actually, it's more than equal opportunity, for giving improved opportunity for people who are starting from a disadvantaged start point is at risk of being dropped as well. Mm-hmm. I think that's a real danger with what is happening, because you have like have an antagonizing view where the right is kind of saying DEI needs to be dropped and all the things that have been put with it, and then a left that seems to be saying no, DEI is fine as it is, and basically you're just a bunch of racist or whatever conservative people that whose concern don't need to be addressed. So I think we need to get out of this sterile almost confrontation around a topic that, as you pointed out, is about social inclusion, is about inclusion, is about like building a more cohesive society. Mm-hmm. So
I think, to add to your point as well, from my research, I've really seen that a lot of people who are coming into companies don't actually want to be there simply because they are going to check a diversity box. They are more productive, they're going to be more engaged in the company if they know that they've been hired based on who they are, based on their merit, and based on what they've achieved, and based on their capability and what they can actually add to the company. It's kind of the same for myself. I wouldn't want to just be hired simply because I'm Black and I'm going to make the company look more diverse. I'd want to be hired because of the knowledge I bring and the multicultural aspect that I bring, that I can also bring to business. So I think that's also one thing.